Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What Magic Is This? Your favorite podcast about magic, the occult, the esoteric, the paranormal, the supernatural, and the weird. And we are going to go pretty heavy in on the weird on this one. So, summer is nearly complete. There was a brief interruption. I was battling a little bit of an illness, and I'm still not feeling 100%. So if I sound a little bit spacey on this one, no fear. But for this show in particular, I want people to know that we're going to do something a little bit different. Now, I know that I've told people, you know, I do several kinds of shows. I have my solo shows. I have the show where I'm kind of like in the background and I let the expert or the academic talk about the topic. Or I have shows where I just talk at my guest, and it's a bit like a lecture, kind of like a tutor at like a coffee shop kind of thing. Anyways, this one, we're just going to have something. I wanted to have a friend of the show on to talk about something that I think is like really cool. There was somebody that I wanted to have on the show for this one, and then it never really worked out. And for this one, I think that we're going to be talking about something that is really quite fascinating. It's something that literally each and every one of us can do, and we do it quite often. So for this episode of What Magic Is This? I am going to be talking about hypnagogia and hypnopompia. And joining me on this wonderful episode is friend of the podcast and Patreon supporter, Samantha Giacalone. Samantha, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. So I did that thing where I gave you like a list of topics, kind of like my old episode. And there was things on there like Ouija boards and other figures. And you said, you know what? We have to talk about hypnagogia. So I have to ask you, Sam, why are we talking about this?
Well, I would like to think I have a little bit of personal experience with these dream states. I mean, that's what I think. What do you think?
I think that this is one of those ones where it is better to approach this one in a bit more conversational of a tone, because it seems so simple, this stuff. Because as I said, each and every one of us, we do this all the time. We do this every day. Every time we go to sleep, we enter into a hypnagogic state. And that is what hypnagogia is. Hypnagogia is the state that we each enter into right before we sleep, and some weird stuff happens. Now, I've gotten some really strange stuff. I've gotten some interesting emails from people being like, man, you know, like if I just want to see like spirits and stuff like that, or I want to have hallucinations, I'll just do drugs. And I was like, you know what? If you get good at this, you don't need any drugs whatsoever. If you become skilled at this, then this is where it is at. So I want to kick it off here. Sam, why are dreams and hypnagogia important to you?
Well, for me personally, I have always felt connected to my dream realms. I always come away with it with, I don't know, an answer to a problem I'm trying to solve, or beautiful imagery for a poem or a story, or this ingredient that I've got to put in my food that's going to make me feel better, you know. So I definitely hang out with the gods for a night, and then I come back and I'm like, what happened?
For sure. Yeah. As I've mentioned in many of my podcasts, I think dreaming is incredibly important, and it serves this function for me as well. I've had inspiration for the show via dream states.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've had things that like I've wanted to do that I then dream about them, and then I will want to do them in real life. And I do them in real life, and very strange, weird stuff happens. So it's all about like connecting this loop. But let's get into hypnagogia itself. And so we're going to be talking about the title of the show is Hypnagogia with Sam. But we're going to be talking about two things here. So the very first thing is, again, that's hypnagogia. That is the state, this really bizarre state that we have where we'll talk about what actually occurs in hypnagogia, but it's right before you fall asleep. And then there's another term called hypnopompia, which is the state that you were in as you were coming out of sleep. So when we say hypnagogia or hypnopompia, remember hypnagogia, going to sleep, hypnopompia, coming right out of the sleep, right? So how about a little bit of history? Is that okay? I mean, that's kind of like what I'm kind of known for. Is that okay?
Right,
Can I talk a little bit about hypnagogia here, Sam?
Yes, please.
Perfect. All right. So the term hypnagogia was coined by Louis Ferdinand Alfred Maury in 1848. Now, he was a very interesting researcher. He's well worth looking up here. Hypnagogia, from Latin, means hypnos, which is sleep, and agogos, which means leading into. Hypnopompia specifically comes from an actual hero of mine, somebody who I've talked about on the show many, many times before, by the name of Frederick Myers. He coined the term hypnopompia in 1897. So from hypnos, sleep, and then pompe, sending away. So sending away the sleep. That's where hypnopompia comes from. So both of these chaps, what needs to be recognized is that both of these people would be immensely influential on Sigmund Freud and his interpretation of dreams, right? Let's get into a little bit of the technical stuff here, because other than that, this is one of those things where we all know that it happens, and it definitely does, but we've only started paying attention to it almost like 150 years, like paying attention to it properly, I'd say. So let's talk about the 4 stages of sleep. And now, what we need to understand is that this is not mechanical in any way. Like people think that it's like, it's this stage, this stage, it's this stage, and it's this stage, and then that's what happens, and that's your sleep. It's not mechanical. These things flow, right? And it's kind of hard for us to decipher when one stops and when another one starts, right? So I have talked about the stages of sleep quite a bit. I've talked about it in my dreams episode. I've talked about it in, I believe, my lucid dreaming episodes. Interesting stuff. So hypnagogia is kind of tough for us as far as people trying to find research about it, because our brainwaves, they go crazy in hypnopompia or in hypnagogia. They go really insane. Like they're all over the place, and which is why it's not as easy for people to be like, this is a clear hypnagogic state, right? So they don't really call hypnagogia and hypnopompia like a stage of sleep, because there's nothing really constant about them. There's no waves like theta or delta waves. One of the best metaphors that I've come across as far as how to view something like hypnagogia is, let's consider sleep like the ocean, right? And we can consider our waking life, that's like the land. Hypnagogia is like the surf, like the rolling, chaotic surf that hits, and it's kind of like it's a thing unto itself. Does that register at all with you, Sam?
It makes sense, but for me, it feels the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, I would definitely go into these states. I don't know, like the earliest I can remember is like 3 years old. And you would think for a 3-year-old, that's scary, but it kind of felt like a homecoming to me. It felt like a very peaceful, I don't know, like just a peaceful state. But my dreams are they're the chaotic, they're the crazy. I can lucid dream. I've told you about some of my some of my dreams. So it makes sense what you're saying, but I definitely feel.
Well, again, with something like the surf, sometimes it's not chaotic for you, right? It can be like a very peaceful, almost like a shoreline on a lake, right? Just like really calm and serene. For myself, it's like it's this really crazy state, like where very strange stuff happens, but it leads into what is called theta, which is theta waves, very light sleep. And this is kind of like when people, some people don't really like know that they're asleep. And so hypnagogia, it's tough to decipher. This is like what one would consider, if they read some of the literature about hypnagogia, they call this like the vanishing point. Like that's theta is like where you're actually asleep. You're still not awake, but this is actually the least eventful part of your brain waves as far as your sleep process is concerned. And also what's really crazy is that some meditators, like people that are like really good at meditating, they can like hang in this like vanishing point. They can stay there. And they have been, people have been studied, like people who are really good at this stuff. And they're just like, their brain is just locked on theta. And it's incredibly interesting. I mean, I'm not there yet. I still and here's the thing, when people are like, oh, I have to learn to meditate to do magic. I'm like, I am still not good at meditating. Like some days are good. Some days are just, what do you meditate at all, Sam?
I do. I always meditate. I'm going to say something, I don't know, maybe controversial, but I enjoy meditating while doing cardio the most.
Okay.
And I know that's it's the opposite of what you want to do when you meditate, is be on the run. But it's a different kind of meditation.
Absolutely.
And so I love it.
For sure. If it works, and that's also what I tell people, if it works for you, and if that's where you feel that you're best at meditating, if you're being active while you're doing it, there's nothing wrong with that. There's never anything wrong with that. Yeah. So from this theta, this light sleep, we head into what is called delta, and delta occupies like the first two sleep cycles is right. And this is deep rest. Again, I've talked about this on my Dreamers episode. This is where everything slows down. Everything, your body slows down, these waves, they're very, very long and broad. This is also where a lot of things, happen as far as like, I don't want to use the term sleep dysfunctions, but in the medicalized West, we call them dysfunctions. But this is where things like night terrors occur, bedwetting, and sleepwalking. They all occur within like this delta wave state, right? And then we get into the one that everybody knows and loves, because for one, it's also a really cool band, REM. Not so much a stage. A lot of people don't consider this they kind of have it on its own pedestal. And I've talked about this. I'm not going to get into it too much, but then you go in and out of these stages, particularly REM and delta, quite a bit through your sleep. You're not just like staying in one and then you stay there and then you wake up. You go back and forth. And so it's really quite interesting. And, if this is interesting to you, please like research this stuff, folks, because it's so strange what our brain and what our bodies do while we're sleeping. It's really quite incredible. And, so, after REM, you have hypnopompia, right? And what is unfortunate about hypnopompia is that a lot of people are doing a lot of research on hypnagogia. A lot of people are like, this is really interesting. We can look at it and we can study it. Almost nobody, very few people are doing a lot of research into hypnopompia, the state, because it's so hard to lock down when we exit REM or delta, when we actually get to this hypnopompic state. But, for myself, I'm in a hypnopompic state far more than I am in a hypnagogic state. And I'll talk about it a little bit further on down the line. But I actually am able to like stay there. And it's a very bizarre feeling, almost like a timelessness. I can be there and it's like 3 hours have passed. Yeah. It's very bizarre. Yeah. But hopefully more people will start to look into hypnopompia, because it's really quite strange and wonderful. So let's talk about the range of experiences within these two states. So Sam, what are some of the major things that happen, that you know happen while in a hypnagogic state?
Well, you could have hallucinations, whether visual or audible, or you can smell things, you can feel things. I mainly have like audible type of hallucinations. I can hear many different people having conversations without me, and I'm like kind of eavesdropping. I'm like, ooh, what are they saying?
You made a note about myoclonic jerks.
Oh yeah.
What are myoclonic jerks?
It's when you're asleep and then you kind of jerk awake, like your muscle kind of moves or your arm moves or whatever. And I wanted to research more into this because I know this is like a chemical thing, but I couldn't really find too much on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's not really fully understood, and what researchers are saying, it's due to like hyperactivity in the brain and like an imbalance of chemicals, but I don't know too much about it to talk about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But yeah, but it's basically that the body is mimicking the brain waves, which are doing chaotic movements. So
Right. I think that's something that literally every single one of us has had, like at least once. It happens to me quite often where it's just like, yeah, you'll be on your way to dreamland and then you'll either jolt awake or your arm will do something like really weird. Like it'll shoot out and you're just like, what on earth is happening there? Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's like,
yeah.
What is this phantom movement that my body just did? But yeah.
Have you ever been like really upset at it? Because I've been in some really beautiful dream states or like dream places, and then I'm just like, oh God.
Oh yes.
What happened?
Oh yes. Here's another thing I think every single one of us is very familiar with, but and this is such a unique and it's unique to hypnagogia, but that wonderful falling feeling that you have, and then that occurs in hypnagogia where it's like out of nowhere you're just falling and then you jolt awake and it's like what the fuck just happened, and it's terrifying. You wake up, your heart it's not like you wake up, you're just like back to 100% brain, regular normal brain. It's just like, oh my God. That occurs in hypnagogia as well, but as well as everything that Sam was mentioning. Yeah, sometimes weird smells. Some people have said that they hear like radio. You say you hear voices and stuff like that. I don't have too much. Let me gear towards my personal. I have this very strange. It's like a canvas like on my eyelids, and it's a strange combination of like figures from a Bosch painting. Really, they're like really weird elongated necks and features. It's very odd. I don't get things like a lot of people say that they see faces. I see like little figures, and they're all like in these strange swirls, and it's like they're acting something out for me. It is very, very odd, and it's super bizarre. But no, for myself, I don't really remember. I can't really recall if I hear voices or anything like that. Not so much.
It's like a regular occurrence for me.
Really?
Yeah, like almost every night. I tried to have a hypnagogic experience before this episode. But I was so nervous about this episode, I just could not even sleep. So.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. But I mean, it's pretty much every night, and sometimes I'll try to like, I don't know, like ask them questions in my dreams, and sometimes they answer, but not really. It's almost like, oh, the big kids are talking and I'm like the little kid. You know what I mean?
Right. Can you hear what they're saying? Like, really? It actually makes sense.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just a bunch of nonsense, but sometimes it's presented as like a poem or a song. Sometimes I'll kind of think on something really hard while I'm going to sleep, something that I need to figure out. And then it's almost like they kind of push their way through, and then they'll say something, and then it just goes back to nonsense. So it's
Wow.
really weird. Yeah.
Very bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have like, do they have like a sex, or is it like, is it male or female, or is it like,
That's
is
interesting. I've never, I don't know. I don't think I've ever gotten that information from them, but like, and by them, I mean, like, I definitely mean, I don't know who the fuck.
right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
That's very cool. Yeah, it's very strange, and here's the thing: when I'm talking about all of this stuff, I want everybody to understand is that there's no normal here. Like when I said
right.
like paranormal, supernatural, and the weird, this is weird. Like because each person has things that are completely different, and there's a person who I'm going to talk about in just a little bit here, but he's got like these stages, and those don't. For me, like there's like two stages that I'm like, I can see that, but the rest of them are unavailable to me, or I just haven't done enough work at trying to get really good at this. But yeah, it's strange range of experiences. Have you heard anything about the Tetris effect?
I mean, like, I know Tetris the game.
Yeah, exactly. So there's
Okay.
there's this thing that occurs for quite a few people that have been researched for hypnagogic states, in which right as they were entering into hypnagogia, again, not like everything flows, but while right before they're going to fall asleep. So this is really trippy. So for people who spend long periods of time on like boats, right before they fall asleep, it feels like they're on the ocean again. People
Yeah.
who are rock climbers, it's like they're climbing the side of a mountain. Like it's really very strange. And they all report that it's like their body is attuned to this state, and then they feel it right before they fall asleep. Right. So I'm not like talking about things like, I had a work dream. This is before you enter into dreams. Your body compensates and feels like it is experiencing this thing that is usually for a lot of people, it's a segment of their life. And yeah, the most interesting one for me is when people say that, like, I spent a lot of time on ships, and then right before on boats, right before I fall asleep, it feels like I'm right on the ocean again. It feels like everything's being
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. I mean, I've definitely felt that. So I'm very sensitive to movement. Like, but when I visit my dad in Florida, there's, elevators, planes, and I'm just constantly sick. And when I finally fall asleep that night after, landing, I feel like I'm on like several elevators for that night. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's called the Tetris effect. And again, people are still trying to look a little bit more into it, but, I myself personally haven't experienced this too much. So yeah, or like at all. Another state that occurs when one is either in a hypnagogic or a hypnopompic state, and this goes both ways, and it's something that we'll touch on a little bit later, or maybe even it gets its own episode. It is sleep paralysis, and that's that wonderful thing where it's like your body cannot move, and a lot of times there's a really menacing force, or even some people see actual, like, it feels like their eyes are open and they see somebody in the room with them. That kind of gets called like a hag experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never experienced sleep paralysis. Have you at all?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. I've had one really scary experience, and after that, I've never seen anything after this one experience.
Okay.
But I've gotten to the point where when it happens, I can talk to myself.
Okay.
Like locked inside my body. I'm just like, it's going to be okay. You're not dead. Just try to wiggle a finger. Just focus on the one finger. Just, don't. Because if you focus on too many things, it's almost like you're screaming inside your body. So, but yeah, I had a really, really intense, and I was a baby. I was like a child. And I had this wicker rocking chair, like this white wicker. Yeah. So And I lived in New Jersey, and I mean, there's a book called Weird New Jersey. So,
True.
like, New Jersey is very, very fucking weird. And I remember I've never been able to do this before since then, but I woke up, I was able to kind of sit up, and I was still sleeping. And to this day, I don't know if my eyes were open or closed. And I looked at the rocking chair, and there was like this really scary creature sitting there just snarling at me. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Wow. They say that something like 10%, 10 to 15% of every human being on Earth will have a sleep paralysis experience. 5% of people have them on the regular. Like that's really incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband, every night he has sleep paralysis. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He wakes me he wakes me up, and I have to be like, "You're fine. Go to
Oh
sleep."
my gosh. Wow. Wow. So one of the people who was, and this is a psychologist who is kind of, he's a fairly mysterious figure. I can't find out anything about this guy, but his name is Andreas Mavromatis. He wrote a book about hypnagogia, and he said that he said that hypnagogia has about 4 stages, which I find interesting. But again, I only kind of hit like 2 of these. So these are the 4 stages. The first one are flashes of light and color, and then it's followed by floating faces and nature scenes, followed by autosymbolic phenomena, which we'll touch on in a little bit, and then followed by hypnagogic dreams. So these are like the kind of like the dreams on the edge of like the vanishing point. And then that just goes straight into dreams. So yeah, as I say, like I get about 2 of these. I don't really have flashes of light, but yeah, nature scenes kind of like is a little bit what I have when I enter into a hypnagogic state. But interesting. What about yourself? How many of the 4 do you hit?
I've never seen like flashes of light and color. Like all the research that's done with these states is that it's not supposed to have a narrative to it.
Right. Yeah.
But like, and that's true. Like some of it is just nonsensical, obscure, and that's fine. I love that stuff. But most of it does have a story to it, which is odd.
Yeah,
it's not supposed to.
No.
It's not supposed to. But no, never colors or lights. I do see faces sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Nature scenes I don't have. That sounds really lovely, but that does not happen for me.
Yeah, as I said, my scenes are kind of like Bosch paintings mixed with Jackson Pollock, like just really, I guess maybe that's flash. No, because it's not light flashing. It's just, they're these really odd swirls. They almost look like paintings, and they kind of blend in with each other, and then they blow out and become figures, and it gets really bizarre.
Have you ever considered like drawing what you see?
No, I'm a terrible artist. I'm a terrible I mean, with Jackson Pollock, I guess I could just like, but it's a dream, right?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, very strange. Some of you might be very well asking, how does one do hypnagogia, or how does one get better at hypnagogia? And it's tough. So this next little bit here, this is all going to be fairly broad. So, Sam, what do you do? Can you stay in a hypnagogic state for very long?
Oh yeah, I can. I mean, and sometimes I can do it while meditating.
Okay.
But it has to be a guided meditation, because I need something to like tether me to, IRL.
Right.
So,
right.
But yeah, I can.
Very cool. And so, like, how long do you think? Is there a time? Like, can you be there for like 15 minutes or?
I wonder that myself.
Right.
I don't know. I have no idea. It seems like eternity, but
really?
I don't know. I don't know. It could be like literally 5 seconds, and I'm like in a different world for 5 seconds.
Right. Right. Yeah. So for people who've never like even like thought about this, I want people to understand that each and every one of us have what's called a chronotype, right? Now, an easy way of thinking about this is like, are you a day person or a night person, right? And it's about kind of knowing this about yourself. So for the longest time, because of my jobs, they necessitated me to have to stay up late. And so I was just like, I'm a night person. I'm a night owl. Once I didn't have to have those jobs, I am not. I'm in bed. 9 o'clock is late for me. Like if I'm not I'm already in bed. I'm up before the sun rises. Like, and this is just what I've realized about my chronotype is that I function better when I go to sleep early and wake up early. And so I think for people that are trying to get into this and do this for like the first time, really pay attention to what your body wants and what it wants to do when it wants to sleep. What are the ideal sleeping circumstances, right? And so I think that that's very, very important. Another thing is if you're trying to do this, please pay attention to your body and your breath. Your body will start to do things. Just be mindful of it. You don't have to like be like entirely just like, what's my body doing now? What's my body doing now? Just be aware of your body and how you're breathing and the kind of your chest going up and down or your belly, depending on if you're breathing deeply or not. Very, very important. And then when you start to fall asleep, one of the ways, at least for myself, when you start to fall asleep, think of something pleasant or exciting or interesting, like just like it's like a little distraction to kind of like keep you at that state, like oh, that thing I read in that book, that was interesting, and that is kind of like in the same way that Sam talked about, being tethered. I find most guided meditations don't do anything for me. So
yeah, a lot of people say that to me. They're like, "Oh, you do that?" I'm like, well, I don't know. Like it gets my imagination going, and I'm
100%. Yeah. I'm in the minority. I'm in the minority.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people don't like guided meditation, and I understand why, because it's not really, I don't know, like there's something about being silent and just shutting the fuck up
right.
for a long period of time. I can't do it. I'm too manic. I need stimulation,
Yeah. I found that when I did start to try and spend more time in a hypnagogic state, I liked silence was best for me. And I liked just when you start to, cause you will feel it. Like this is something we do this all the time. So we're so used to it just happening automatically that when you start to pay attention to it, just a little idea, just be like, oh yeah, that's fun. And then you'll kind of stay there and you'll kind of hover for a little bit. One thing that's really important is try not to move your body, right? Unless it's of course like your body's doing that jerky thing that we talked about earlier, but it takes a lot of work and skill if you want to spend a while in a hypnagogic state. And it does take time to actually get it right. But there's people, one of them is an author I'll bring up a little bit later. They can do it. They can do it like a pro. It's like they can stay in this state for hours, right? And just come like, I don't want to use the term edging, but it's kind of like edging yourself with sleep. Like it's just they're able to just stay there. And it's really quite interesting. But yeah, trying to pull yourself back from vanishing point is interesting. And however one does that, it's kind of up to you. It's really hard because each one of us is so very different.
That's true. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so there's this other thing that I'm just going to mention this author. So there's this author by the name of Jennifer Dumpert. She wrote a book called Liminal Dreaming, Exploring Consciousness at the Edge of Sleep. It's one of the major, if not like the most helpful book for people that are interested in hypnagogia and hypnopompia. It's wonderful. And so she's got this thing called the feedback loop. And this is even harder than just like trying to stay at like vanishing point, but it's soft concentrating on like the first thing that appears to you. So for yourself, Sam, it would be concentrating on those voices. And it sounds like you're actually able to do this for a bit.
I don't know. Maybe the gods took pity on me and gave me a gift. I don't know.
Well, that's cool. I find it tough heading like back and forth and like from the loop of like sleep to hypnagogic to sleep to hypnagogic. It's like I had terrible time sleeping when I was younger, and nowadays, like I'll take any sleep I can get. Like I'm sleep is like the most sacred thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like my body, when it starts to fall asleep, I just give up. I'm just like, that was fun. That 5 seconds where weird shit was starting to happen, but I go straight in. It sounds like what you do is this idea of the feedback loop where it's like you soft concentrate on what's occurring to you. And so, yeah, this is something for people to experiment. Is the very first thing that comes to you that seems kind of not normal is you just pay attention to it. And I like what Jennifer says in her book is that you kind of breathe into that sensation, whether it's a sound or a smell or a face, you just breathe into it. So she's got a website, which I will link to in this episode. But yeah, it's really quite fascinating. It's just breathing to concentrate on like the very first thing that occurs to you while you're in this state. Have you ever tried something like that? Have you ever tried to like kind of breathe something into or to concentrate, or do you just like, it's there, I can pay attention to it. It's quite easy.
It goes back and forth for me. I'm not like, I don't know. Sometimes when I see a face, I'm like, oh, who's that? And I try to make it stay, and then just kind of analyze every little, like what color eyes it has, who does it look like,
right? Or
with the voices, I'm not speaking aloud. I'm like speaking, I don't know, like in my own head. I'm like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And sometimes out of this, I don't know, this weird throw up poetic crap they're saying, sometimes they'll be like, hey, something bad is going to happen this week, or something stupid. You know what I mean? Like,
jerks.
But something will happen. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. So
that's strange.
Well, here's the thing. My grandmother, when she was alive, she would have these experiences where a Sicilian woman would come to her and talk to her in these hypnagogic states. My grandmother lost the ability to speak Sicilian. She, like when she was younger, she used to, but she had the ability to understand it in this state.
Right.
And this woman would be like, your grandson didn't go to school. Your daughter is pregnant again.
Wow.
Yeah.
She had some hypnagogic allies. Huh.
I really, and yeah, that's what it feels like.
That's awesome. How about yourself?
Yeah.
Has this Sicilian entity, has it shown up to you at all? No way.
No, I don't like to summon the spirits.
No.
I leave them alone.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's incredibly fascinating. I love it. That's so cool. Oh man. Yeah.
Thank you. But I think like the ancient Greek and Romans, they like dreaming was so important for them to receive information about their daily lives and healing, which is something I'm actually trying to work on more. I did not know it was a thing, but
right.
Ever since hearing your podcast and listening to the dreaming episode and the lucid dreaming episode, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't realize this is a thing.
Right. The same thing for me with hypnopompia, like, and hypnagogia. It wasn't until I learned about them and I was like, oh, that's what that is.
Right. Yeah.
Like and everybody does it. It's not like an exclusive thing. So.
Right. Yeah.
But part of me is also like, oh, that's cool. All of us can do this. That's I have to share it with everybody. So that's how I get. But to speak on something like that, I think I need people to understand is that just like with my episode on astral travel and soul flight, learning how to get good at this is you're on your own. Like it's really, we're so different, each and every one of us. All of our chronotypes are different, right? So we really have to figure out what works best for us. For myself, when I first bought Jennifer's book, that was kind of like, when did it come out? It came out 2018, I think. Anyways, I really started to experiment with Hypnagogia as opposed to Hypnopompia. And the thing that I found help was that little bit of advice that's just to breathe into something. I do something like that, but it's more of like stoking a fire. It's like breathing like embers. Ooh. And that's the imagery that I kind of, I go with, is that whatever.
That's beautiful.
Whatever strange like things I have in front of me, I kind of like breathe it, and I breathe into it like an ember, and feel it just happen more. And I can stay in a hypnagogic state for like a little bit longer. I'm not great at it. But it's really interesting. So that's a little bit of that's my little bit of advice there, is like, try to see if this works for you. Is the very first thing that comes up to you. Try to view it as being like an ember of something, and breathe into it as if you're like at a campfire and you don't quite want the fire to die. You start to breathe into the fire a little bit. And yeah. Now there's some ways of actually doing this that are a little bit more technical. So let's talk about a couple of the technical aspects. Now, are you familiar with what Salvador Dali would do?
I read a bit about Thomas Edison's crazy 20-minute interval thing. I can't get behind it, but not Salvador Dali. Now tell me about it, please.
So what Salvador Dali and Thomas Edison would do: for Thomas Edison, he would use a stone. And for Salvador Dali, he would use a large key. And what they do is that they would sleep sitting in a chair. And then as they drifted off into dreamland, their hold on the object that they had would drop, and they would put something that would make a lot of noise. I believe it was like a metal plate of some kind. So as soon as they fell asleep, they'd drop they'd lose their grip on what they were holding. It would hit the ground and it would make a noise, and they'd immediately be like, register what's in their brain or what ideas they have. For Dali, it was like, I'll paint what I saw, which is why a lot of his paintings are fairly far out. They're fairly weird, but that's what he would do. And and Edison, apparently he did the same thing. And some very interesting ideas. It's like, imagine if I could capture voices on a disc. Like he talks about some ideas like that coming to him in these states. And I've tried this. It actually works. Really? Yeah. I'm not great at it because I don't hold things when I sleep, right? So it takes me a long time to get to that state. And I'm a fairly impatient person with this kind of stuff, but it does work. And that feeling that you have, that like little jolt feeling, it's not as aggressive as like the falling feeling, but you hear a noise and you're just like, oh, okay. And then I try to kind of like stay there for a little bit. But this is what I would definitely suggest for people if they want to actually spend like a second and understand where this state is. So yeah, very cool. Yeah. Do you have any tools that you help, or any kind of like things, or is it just so natural to you that it's just you're good?
I do go through phases where I just straight up don't dream at all. So, and then it's like really depressing, but whatever. Yeah. I've gotten into, I think it's really important to have a nighttime ritual or a routine, whatever you want to call it, essential oils, or I have like a little Neptunian altar by my bed. And, I'll even put books about dreaming next to it. I don't know if it was you or somebody else said, once you start paying attention to your dreams know you're paying attention to it. And yeah, I've got to say that was the best advice I've ever heard, because it's so true. And my dreams are so like bigger now. That's the best way I can explain that. So get into a ritual of some sort, and like you said, sleep is sacred. I fully believe that. So
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful bit of advice there. Just that whatever you do before you fall asleep, I would suggest and recommend, this is not so much a tool, but something to take away. Less screens before bed. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at an iPad. Don't look at a TV. 2 hours before bed, you'll have better dreams and you'll be able to stay in like hypnagogic state. I think like a little bit easier. You're able to recognize it
I
a
agree.
bit more. Jennifer Dumpert uses she uses voice activated recorders because she wants to talk about, and her books are about like sharing the experiences of what happens in these states. And so she'll be in the state and she'll be literally able, she's so good at it, she'll literally be able to talk about what she's seeing while it's occurring. So I'm not at that state yet. I actually even I tried looking for voice activated iPhone apps. They don't really exist.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know if I could do that either. If I move at all, if I speak or open my eyes, like it's over, it's done. I'm out of the state. I'm out of the dream, or it's just done. I'm awake now, so I can't do it.
Yeah, it's so tough to get to that one point, and it's one of those things that takes a lot of work, as I said, but it's great if you can get there. So yeah, I would suggest though, I would definitely suggest people grabbing a stone or something hard, grab a really like a tin bucket or something like that, or I don't know, like a curry bowl or something that's like metal, and have a stone in your hand and try to give it a shot. It's a really good way of being like, oh, that was the hypnagogic state. Like I know what it feels like. If this kind of thing, you don't get there as easily and are able to decipher it as much as people that do this on the reg. But voice activated voice recorders. I don't have one. I do keep a phone next to my bed when I'm trying to concentrate a bit more on my dreams. And I have it queued up to a voice recorder, which is literally like, it goes as soon as I get out of my hypnopompic state, I'm able to talk about the things that I saw. So that helps, I find, in some way. So let's move on to something that is kind of interesting, which is onierogens. Onierogens. So what are onierogens, Sam?
I actually have never heard of this word before until you sent me the notes. So I'm not as familiar, but I think they're just like little thing like herbs or whatever to help you fall asleep easier.
Yeah, they're things that can not just help you fall asleep, but dreams and in a way hypnagogia and hypnopompia. So let's go through a couple of them. So there's mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, right? So everybody knows about the witches and their mugwort. So what's interesting about mugwort is that it can give you the effects of mugwort just from like the smell alone, the olfactory.
Really?
Yeah. Like yeah, you can get the effects of it.
I have to write this down.
You don't need to consume it. There you go. Yeah, but if you have a strongly scented mugwort essential oil, if you take a little bit of that, you smell a bit of it before falling asleep, or you have a little bit of it in like a paper towel or a cloth before falling asleep, crazy dreams.
Really?
I've done it. They do.
Huh.
Yeah. They're very interesting. Just be aware of which variety of mugwort. There's a lot of people selling things that are apparently mugwort, which are not.
Oh my god!
Make sure that you know the Latin name of. Yeah, well, it's the magic and the occult. There's grifters everywhere.
True.
But the mugwort is a really, really interesting one. Very cool, worth looking into. Finding a good essential oil of mugwort. It'll help. And just the scent of it is nice. I know some people, they'll make tinctures out of mugwort as well and consume it. I'm not familiar with that, but I know people do such a thing. Yeah. Kalaya Zakatakiki. All right. So this is harder to find, but this comes from an area of Mexico that I absolutely love, which is Oaxaca. A lot of onieronauts, which are people that do a lot of dreaming. I think I consider you and I, we're onieronauts, right? Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I'll take that.
But there we go. But Kalaya apparently gives some incredible dream experiences, but it also allows people, it kind of keeps them a little bit alert so that when the hypnagogic states come in, that they're a little bit easier to hold on to. So that is one that is interesting. Here's something I use quite a bit. Melatonin. So melatonin is a product that is produced by the pineal gland. A lot of people consider the pineal gland the third eye. Anyways, moving on. Melatonin. Melatonin is used quite a bit for people's circadian rhythms, right? Our body produces it every day, every night. We produce melatonin. I think melatonin illegal in the UK still? I think some parts
it's you can't get it over the counter for sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And like melatonin, I talk about this so much. I'm so sorry, but with hormonal imbalances, it's really important to get your sleep schedule under control. So melatonin is really good for that, but I have not been able to get I think my mom sent me some
nice.
And then it just like melted. So, yeah. So I've been doing my best without melatonin, but I heard magnesium is really good as well. So I've been putting that in my coffee. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. For myself, melatonin, I have some wild hypnagogia when I do melatonin. And not in a good way.
Really?
Sometimes I use melatonin maybe once or twice a week just because I want to kind of like experience this kind of stuff. I try not to take, melatonin's weird because it's got a ramping effect. So if you take it too often, it just your body gets used to it. And so it's like you're taking absolutely nothing. So I try not to overuse it, but I take it once or twice a week. And right before I fall asleep, there's some really weird stuff. That's when it's weird. It's funny that now that I think about it, that's where I get faces and they're really scary faces is when I take melatonin. I can hang there for a little bit. I recommend it if it's illegal where you are. Sorry, in Canada we can eat we can get it by the bucket. You know, it's everywhere. Here's a strange onierogen that is kind of an onierogen by proxy, but it is that it's weed, it's marijuana, but by stopping using it. If you are a regular habitual user of marijuana, if you stop, like full stop, just stop using it, dreams and hypnagogic states come super vivid. They become flooding back. And that is truly like one of the major reasons why I actually don't smoke weed.
Agreed.
I like my dreams. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I'm the same way. If I can't do it anymore because I'm over here in the UK. But yeah, I will have, best case scenario, I have the best sleep ever because I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. The spirits leave me alone for a night and I can just friggin' sleep. So, but I don't even dream when I, engage with Mary Jane Watson.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're a regular pot user and you want to like experience this kind of stuff, the first thing you're going to have to do is to stop smoking so much weed. And apparently your dreams become incredibly vivid. So that's a little onierogen by proxy. Binaural beats, something that is less talked about, and which I know almost nothing about, but apparently some people say that it really helps them before falling asleep to stay. So that would kind of be like your guided meditation in a way. But the binaural beats, there's sometimes, it's not well studied. And so Jennifer doesn't go into it a ton in her book, Liminal Dreaming, but it's just like, apparently some of the beats are at certain wavelengths that are supposed to mimic the wavelengths of a sleep sleep cycle. And so that's supposed to make you like trick your brain into anyways, it's interesting.
that makes sense. It makes total sense because
I think maybe
I have nothing else to say, but yeah.
I think maybe what it might be is that it is the same thing that you have, is that it's just it's distracting enough. The beats are distracting enough so that you can you can recognize when you're starting to fall asleep. I think that might be.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
I should probably get into that more.
Yeah,
binaural beats.
yeah. So I mean, they're all like, you go to YouTube, they're huge. They're like ASMR. Like it's people are really pushing binaural beats. I just find them somewhat distracting, but that's just how it goes. Yeah. But yeah, those are some onierogens that people can try. Kalia Zakateki is or Tikichi. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Hard to find, not easy to find. Easier things to find: melatonin and mugwort. I think mugwort's the witchy thing to do. So maybe
right,
folks, but make sure you're buying the actual mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris. That is what you want. But yeah, there's some people that are just selling you, I don't know, dish soap in there. They're saying it's mugwort. What can you do?
Oh my gosh.
So, do you know what autosymbolic phenomena is, Sam?
I do not, actually.
Okay, so each of my episodes, I try to have like a hero of my episode. And the hero of this episode will be one Herbert Silberer. All right, so everybody knows about Carl Jung. And people are like, oh yeah, when Carl Jung got kicked out of like the cool kids club from Sigmund Freud, everybody knows that story. There was another gentleman who was kicked out of the cool Freud club, and that was Herbert Silberer. He was a Viennese psychoanalyst. And yes, he was one of those people who was trying to look into things like dreams and hypnagogia way more. And he had some more occult proclivities. And yeah, the other of Freud's colleagues, they completely disowned him. He wrote a book called Problems of Mysticism and Its Symbolism. It is a crazy book. It is really quite fun. The first half of the book is like going through psychoanalysis like Freud. And then the last half of the book is like this weird mystical journey in which he basically says like, look, the occult is part of the human condition. It is not just a condition. There's actual stuff here. It is a crazy read. It is quite fun. Please look into it. But yeah, he just basically said Freud is good up to a point. Like he's like, Freud and psychoanalysis is fine up to a point. But yeah, the book is methodical. It goes through this crazy mysticism. It's really quite fun. Unfortunately, he was so ostracized and just felt like nobody was taking his ideas serious. He hung himself. He was quite young.
Oh no.
Yeah. He committed suicide, but he is the hero of this episode. Please look up Herbert Silberer. But he's came up with this idea of autosymbolic phenomena. And for him, these are the images that pop up. And this happens quite a bit in a hypnagogic state, as well as a hypnopompic state, in which aspects of your life are given symbols. And they're usually quite blatant in some way. So for him, Herbert talked about this one time, and he was in a hypnopompic state, and he was in his waking life, he was working on a book, and he was working on this one passage in his book. He was just trying to rework it over and over again, and he got quite tired of it. He decided to have a nap. And in his hypnagogic state, he saw a figure planing a piece of wood, like trying to make a piece of wood finer, right? And he was like, that is a complete blatant symbolic representation of what I am going through in my life, which was to try and get that sentence correctly, or that passage correctly. It was like I'm trying to like plane that sentence into shape. So this is autosymbolic phenomena. And it's usually not as like one-to-one as I'm like, it's not going to be like, I don't know, like what's a good example? Like I'm going to go to the zoo the next day. So I I in a hypnagogic state, I'm at the zoo. It's going to be a different symbol. And he actually thought that if we can understand this more, this is a better way of peeking into our frame of mind, the things that are important to us, the things that we value, and how we're doing generally, healthily, mentally, if we are to pay attention to these auto-symbolic phenomena that we have in a hypnagogic state. Anyways, incredibly fascinating stuff. I really want people to look up Herbert Silber. Poor guy.
Yeah, geez.
There's this idea, though, that the symbols that you get through hypnagogia are more clear to us because we're not sleeping. We don't have that, like the wackiness of dreams. So yeah. Have you had anything like this happen to you? Do you have anything like where there's something you glean and then it comes to you as like, oh, that's actually me trying to figure this part of my life out?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Symbolically, I'm sure. But outright, definitely just outright, like getting an idea of what I need to do or whatever.
Yeah. I had one, I remember, where I was going through a rough time, and this happened recently. It was before I moved from Toronto, but I was so busy and it was, okay, this is going to be a funny one. All right. So this is going to be a funny one. And so I was trying, and it just seemed like everything that I was doing for the podcast, people were canceling, everything was going rough. And I had this in my hypnagogic, and this might tie in a little bit to the Tetris effect. So in a hypnagogic state, because I was so tired, I just laid on my couch and I was just like, I'm going to see what's happening. It was right at that threshold of like theta sleep, right on the vanishing point. I felt myself like right back, and I was in a restaurant that was, I'm not kidding. What we were serving was human shit. Okay. Human excrement. And the tickets were coming so fast. They were just like, I couldn't keep up. I was rushing around. I just remember feeling like so disheartened. And it was like the figure was me, but it also wasn't me. It was
right. Yeah.
So, and this was like, and I just remember like being in this state, and I felt my anxiety because I was having this experience getting amped in my body as I was having this strange experience. And it's just like, it was hard to go away. Anyways, that's an auto-symbolic phenomenon. It was like me in the shit, serving shit, was like, Doug, you need to calm down your life a little bit, because you just need to relax a bit more, because this is starting to affect you. Anyways, so yes, Herbert Silber, everybody look up Problems with Mysticism and Its Symbolism. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. Give it a read. It's a strange one, but I think that for myself, I agree more so with Jung and Silber as far as like, these experiences are real and we have to give them a corporeal reality because they do have a currency in our lives. So let's talk a bit about the scary stuff, because everybody likes the scary stuff. So, Sam, what do you do when you enter into sleep paralysis?
Well, remain calm. Absolutely. Like, because you'll be fine. Just keep telling yourself you'll be fine. And like I said, focus on one, because, okay, so typically when I have sleep paralysis, I could feel like what position I'm in, like when I'm sleeping, I could feel the pillow, the blanket. And that's true for like hypnopompic states as well. So I'll just focus on moving one body part and just keep repeating to myself, you'll be fine, just move it. But I've I don't know how, but I've buried myself underneath blankets and pillows, and I had like 3 blankets or something like that. And I had this weird sleep paralysis, hypnopompic experience where I was like floating in and out of knowing that like I'm locked inside my body, and then like this weird dream where like this witch was trying to drown me, and I was like, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can't breathe. And I just kept going back and forth, and I'm like, okay, I've got to wake up or I'm gonna die. So yeah, so I just like, jolted awake, and I was like, holy crap, I was suffocating.
Wow.
Yeah.
For some people who have certain amounts of sleep apnea or problems dreaming, they actually record sleep paralysis occurring more for them.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's already, sleep apnea is already a terrifying experience, right? Like it's not a good thing. Some people, I literally know people who have to be hooked up to a machine while they sleep.
Oh my gosh.
To get, they get used to it. And they actually say,
right,
like,
yeah.
they're like, I sleep better than I've ever slept. But, yeah, if you're not breathing well, you're not breathing properly. Sleep paralysis is one of those things that occurs somewhat more frequently. And, so making sure that your body is in a position where, for myself, my position when I sleep is I'm all hunched over, and I've noticed that when I try to lengthen myself out a bit on the bed, a little bit more clear breathing passageway, I sleep better. It's one of those things where I think that if you're paying a bit more attention to the position you're in, making sure that there's no, your breathing passages aren't blocked in any way, you're not impeding your breathing, that is a good way of just being able to mitigate sleep paralysis. Yeah. If people are afraid that it happens, or if it happens quite a bit, but, yeah, it's scary stuff, sleep paralysis.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
There is a documentary that is actually very spooky called The Nightmare, and it goes through people's certain sleep paralysis experiences. I'm not going to suggest it for you, Sam.
No.
Or your husband.
No.
But people, if this is interesting to you, check out this movie called The Nightmare. It's some of it's a bit of a reenactment of people's sleep paralysis experiences. The range of experiences that people have is incredible and also very frightening. There's people who they felt like they were actually up and walking around their apartment, and their apartment explodes, and all the there's people that have answered their phone thinking that they're actually answering their phone, and somebody on the other line says, "I need you to do me a favor, let me in." Like, really, yeah, exactly, really strange. But yeah, this ties into something that is also something I'm very fascinated about, which is called the whole old hag experiences, which I will talk about shortly. But if sleep paralysis is something that you suffer from, and people listening to this, they want to know a little bit more, and because with this kind of stuff, learning about it is actually medicine. Like, learning about the things that are occurring is actual medicine. There's a great book by Ryan Hurd called Sleep Paralysis, A Guide to the Hypnagogic Visions and Visitors of the Night. I will have a link to it in the show notes. Yeah, if you find that you are being plagued by sleep paralysis conditions, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's never happened to me. Luckily, knock on wood, it's never happened to me. But if you find that this is something that's occurring and you'd like it to stop in some way, Ryan's book is a very good book. I read it before this episode. Highly recommend. It's a good book. So yeah, definitely check it out. Let's talk about some cool stuff, some more weird stuff. So precognition during these liminal states. So here's my experience. As I said, I'm much better at hypnopompia than hypnagogia. For some reason, I am able to know as soon as I wake up, and I'm able to stay very still. What I would suggest for people is, as soon as you figure that you're awake, your first reaction is to want to move. Don't do it. Don't move. Just relax. And again, breathe into what you are seeing and feeling, because you're feeling and seeing some interesting stuff. So for myself, I have talked about this on episodes before, but I have this very strange thing, and I don't know whether it's due to me working at video stores for a lot of my life, or a record store. I, for some reason, have I see vignettes of either musicians playing music or actors in actual movies or just kind of being around. And then I will wake up and I will actually find out that they have died. So this this has happened countless times with me. It's very bizarre. Max von Sydow was one, the great actor who was in The Exorcist and Minority Report. I came out of my sleep and I was just lying there, and for some reason, scenes of him in the Seventh Seal, the Ingmar Bergman film, was there, in which he plays chess with death, which is very strange. Anyways, scenes of him in Minority Report were going through my head and like on repeat. It's weird. They were like looping, and then I woke up and found out that he had passed away. This happened with Toots and the Maytals, the lead singer. A song was in my Toots and the Maytals song was in my head, like on repeat in a hypnopompic state. And then I found out that he passed away. The most recent example was literally less than a month ago, or it was about a month ago. For some reason in my head, a scene starring James Caan and Hugh Grant from the film Mickey Blue Eyes, which I'm pretty sure I've only ever seen once, in which they're in a car and one is going like, forget about it. Anyways, that scene was in my head in a hypnopompic state, as well as a scene from Mel Brooks's movie, Silent Movie, in which had James Caan. I woke up and I looked at Twitter and James Caan had passed away that day. So yeah. This is something that happens to me a lot. I do not know why it happens. It's very bizarre. It happens, I would like to say, more than chance. Again, there's a lot of things going through our mind. And so we can have this idea that I'm only picking and choosing what things I'm drawing attention to, but it happens so often that it's actually kind of striking. I don't think it's just coincidence. At this point, it's actors and musicians. It's nobody else. I don't dream about Gorbachev passing away or anything like that. Like it's very bizarre, but so yeah, this is something that more people are looking into. Eric Wargo, who friend of the podcast, he says that hypnopompic and hypnagogic states might be more precognitive than dreams and probably easier to apprehend. And he says that they usually come true within a day or two. So pay attention. He says they happen so quickly. With dreams, sometimes we have these dreams of things that are going to happen and it'll take months. He says with hypnagogia and hypnopompia, a day or two. And with myself, the actors, it's usually that morning. Like I will get up and then I'll find out, wow, that's so bizarre that person has passed away. Cause that scene from that movie was literally just in my mind on repeat. And it's very, very bizarre. So, Eric has a whole chapter of hypnagogic states, or at least like a sub-chapter in his book, Precognitive Dream Work and the Long Self. Please look into it. But he's got a very cool hypnagogic experience where he was injured. He'd just come out of surgery and he had an experience with David Lynch, and something very David Lynchian happened to him. Anyways, I'm not going to ruin it, but look into it. Have you ever had anything in this state happen to you, Sam, that later came true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, very recent. I have two. I don't know if you want to hear both of them, but
tell us both.
Okay. So the most recent one, I was looking at myself.
Okay.
Oh gosh, how do I explain this? I was like consecrating these herbs, and I'm not that really good with like knowing what herbs do what yet. And these voices were like repeating these herbs. They were like telling me, and I was like, oh, you know what? This sounds like herbs for asthma and coughing. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then I see my brother, and he has his hand out to me, and he's not breathing, and he's turning purple. And my brother, so my brother always grew up with asthma, or he grew up with asthma, sorry. And they just kept repeating these herbs, and I'm like, okay, and I could feel my body, right? Because I know I'm in bed, and I'm just calming down. I'm like, okay, what are you showing me? And then I heard the voices again. They were like, your brother has COVID.
Oh,
and I
man.
was like, that's not a good thing because he has asthma. And so I said to them, hopefully, and I don't know like where this came from. I was like, hopefully it goes to his stomach. Don't know where that came from. The next day, my mom calls me and she's like, your brother won't stop throwing up.
Oh, man.
And he went to the hospital, and this whole time I'm like, Mom, I think it's COVID. And she's like, no, that doesn't happen. You don't throw up. You don't fucking throw up, Samantha. That's not how it works. And I was like, all right. Yeah, that's my mom. And he had COVID, and he has liver damage now from COVID. So yeah, it was like really, really fucking weird. And I always think, I'm like, what if, you know, I don't know, what if it did affect his lungs? So, and then another instance, I had this this rabbit as a pet. My dad gave it for my birthday.
Nice.
As a present. Yeah. I was just too young. I didn't really know how to take care of a fucking rabbit. But I did love it. And I have a lot of guilt about this, but I think my stepdad let it go. Okay. And we live, when I lived with my mom and my stepfather, we live in an area with a lot of stray cats. And this rabbit came to me and was like, hey, I'm going to another place now. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about me. And then when I woke up from this you know, this state, this hypnopompic state, my mom was like, so your rabbit,
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, thanks. I think about it all the time. I'm like, I'm a horrible person.
Oh, wow. I have to ask though, is your brother doing okay now?
Yeah, he's doing a lot better.
Okay, good.
I told him, I was like, hey, so I had a dream about this. And he was like, why the fuck didn't you tell me? I could have avoided it. I was like, no, you wouldn't have listened to me. You would have just been like, okay with your wizard shit or whatever.
Yes, this is the perennial problem of being a precognitive wizard. Very cool though. Very cool experience.
Yeah. I
think a lot of people, it's weird because Eric Wargo was talking about just precognitive since the pandemic, and with everything that's happening in a chaotic world, everybody's a precog now. It's very bizarre. Everybody's a precog, but yeah, fascinating. Again, pay attention to some certain things that are occurring if you're in a hypnagogic or hypnopompic state, because sometimes they'll come true and quickly. Very quickly. So more research to be done, I think, for people. But yeah, I think it's really incredible. I don't know why musicians and actors, it's puzzling to me, and just not politicians, not public figures, just actors and musicians for the most part. I mean,
maybe because you're just passionate about it. I don't know.
I'm not as passionate about films anymore. I used to be obsessed with. Yeah, I used to be obsessed with films. I don't have time to watch movies. It's like
okay,
I'm one of those. Like I have no time. But yeah, it's very bizarre. I have no idea why. It's odd because in the video stores that I work at, they were like independent video stores, and I would always have movies running when I'd work, and I'd work long hours, and there was just always films in the background. So very bizarre. Very strange, but let's get even more bizarre here. Paranormal or supernatural moments during or immediately after this kind of liminal dreaming. So many folks I've talked to have had people in the bedroom right after they wake up or right before they're going to fall asleep. One person in particular was my friend Clayton on the Necronomicon episode. He's like, craziest thing that ever happened to me. I was sleeping over at another girl's place, woke up, there was a person right there in the room. It freaked the heck out of me. And then they were there and they just stayed there. And then eventually they went away. There's Dara from Spirit Box podcast. He talked about how he was in his bedroom, woke up, and then there was a prism of light that was in like an actual column of light, and he closed his
What?
eyes and he opened it again and it was still there. So these kind of experiences, at least the one that my friend Clayton went through, are what are called hag experiences, and they're sometimes tacked on with something like sleep paralysis. Sometimes people feel that they can't move. A lot of times, though, people can move. A lot of times, and it's just like very bizarre, and they're there for a moment and then they go away. So interesting. There is a book by David Hufford called The Terror That Comes in the Night that is about hag experiences. Really wonderful book. I don't think it's been republished recently, so it's quite expensive, but it is about how this experience is so human and it happens to so many of us, that a lot of our ideas of demons and crazy entities come from these kinds of experiences. And he's more about the idea that we don't come up with the theories to explain the stuff that's happened. Our myths and whatnot comes from these kinds of experiences because a lot of us have them. So he doesn't try to explain away like, oh, you just had this, you saw somebody in your room because you're having a stressful, and you just
Right.
called, right? So it's very interesting, a very cool book. To talk about some paranormal stuff, I will say that there's so many ghost stories occur with folks in their bedroom. It's a common motif. It happens. Dead loved ones. Yeah, so we're kind of entering into crossover territory for an eventual ghost episodes, but there are numerous reports of poltergeist activity. Always people are saying like, I was just about to fall asleep and then this thing happened. Like I was just about to fall asleep. I was just drifting off to sleep. And then there was this loud bang. These things occur quite a bit at this weird state. I think that it's time for us to look a little bit more at this kind of stuff. And yeah, even things like the hag experiences. There's the cynical take, of course, is that people that just don't understand their hypnagogic or hypnopompic experience. And so the things that happen in that experience, they relate as actually really happening. I think that's very cynical. I think that for people that have this kind of stuff, particularly things like poltergeists, it's not just because they're in that state and it's not explained away by that state. But yeah, this kind of stuff does occur quite a bit and you hear it constantly. I was just about to fall asleep and then something flew across the room, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you had anything weird happen to you at all, Sam?
Oh God, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to fall asleep and then this thing happened.
Tell us.
I felt I was, again, I call it locked inside my body, and I couldn't move, and I was like in my early 20s and I just heard about astral projecting or whatever the fuck. And I was like, what if I did that now? And I opened, it wasn't my eyes. It was like like spirit eyes, like the eyes within my mind. And I was standing, it was like this really beautiful, tall bush.
Okay.
With like these beautiful, vivid flowers. And I like put my hands through to open and see on the other side. And so you can't pay me to say lizard person. Like I'm not gonna say lizard person, but there is definitely like a scaly humanoid figure on the other side, and it kind of like did this like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And before I like could wake up, because I was scared because I've never seen anything like this. Right. I was like, oh, that's weird. That's Sam. That's me. And then I woke up. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yes.
Is Sam a reptile? Who knows?
I don't know.
Have you had anything like fly about the room or anything like that? I had one experience where a painting literally, I'm just remembering this now, it's so weird.
Oh God.
I was sleeping in my cousin's bedroom. I was very young. I was maybe about 8 or 9, and I was staring at a picture that he had on his wall of Woody Woodpecker, and it literally like came alive.
Oh, no.
And the painting started going back and forth. Like it would like, it was rotating. Yeah. It was.
Oh God.
Anyways.
Oh, so terrifying.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, it was a framed picture of Woody Woodpecker, and then Woody Woodpecker like winked, and then he danced about in the picture frame, and then the picture frame started moving back and forth. It was so bizarre.
That's somehow more terrifying than my experience.
There's that expression right before I was just about to fall asleep. I was like, well, we have a name for that state. It's hypnagogia. So let's talk about a bit of historical hypnagogia and hypnopompic all-stars. So number 1, my boy, Sweezy E. Oh, perhaps Emanuel Swedenborg was one of the most talented hypnagogic practitioners ever of all time. His whole spiritual diary could be read as one long hypnagogic vision that he had, a series of hypnagogic visions. This is what Swedenborg himself has to say, and it's on record. This is it. So he says, "But different is the vision which comes when one is in full wakefulness, with the eyes closed. This is such that things are seen as clear as day. Nay, there is still another kind of vision which comes in a state midway between sleep and wakefulness. The man then supposes that he is fully awake, as it were, inasmuch as all his senses are active. Another vision is that between the time of sleep and the time of wakefulness, when the man is waking up and has not yet shaken off sleep from his eyes. This is the sweetest of all, for heaven then operates into his rational mind in the utmost tranquility." He's literally talking about hypnagogia and hypnopompia. He visited different planets, heaven, hell, purgatory. He is just an amazing figure to look into. And as far as his hypnagogia is concerned and hypnopompia, it's where a lot of his spirituality came from. It was the well from which his spirituality came from. So definitely somebody to look into. A lot of people have talked about Rudolf Steiner, who was a theosophist for a very long period of time as well. Waldorf schools, he's the one that set those things up. He was an Austrian mystic as well. He would talk about sitting in a chair and sitting there, and these crazy ideas would visit him, and he would visit. He said he would ponder over the Akashic record while he would just sit there. And most people just say like he was probably just in a deeply hypnagogic state. Andreas Mathromatis is somebody who makes a big deal of this in his book. So worth looking into. Yeah, he most likely he traversed the Akashic record probably in a hypnopompic state. So very, very cool. Of course, I've talked about Salvador Dali, his paintings, a lot of the weird stuff. All of his stuff is weird, but a lot of the weird stuff, visions that he had while he was in hypnagogic state. And Edison, lots of his ideas. Again, Carl Jung, huge fan. Of course, he was a friend of Herbert Silberer, and he knew what hypnagogia was and hypnopompia. But that leads us into something called active imagination. Now, people might wonder when Jung is talking about his active imagination, which was just like it's almost like daydreaming, but just kind of letting your mind wander, and wherever it goes, you just kind of follow it. You're awake when it's happening. So some people ask me, like, is active imagination the same as hypnagogia? Yes and no, because it is liminal. Active imagination is more distinct. You're far more awake, and think of it more as like the better way to think about it is like deep daydreaming, right? It's like daydreaming squared, but that doesn't mean that it can't lead into hypnagogia. And in many cases it will, particularly if you're just starting to try and learn how to do active imagination. You'll find it like it's seamlessly just start to be like, oh, I'm going to fall asleep. In fact, somebody on the Discord recently was like, I tried meditating and I just keep falling asleep. And I was like, that's good. That's good. You have a state there. Have you ever heard of active imagination at all?
No, but the way you describe it, I'm very, very familiar with it. And you're right. You can start with active imagination and kind of lead into a hypnagogic state. And I love doing that. It's like my favorite thing.
Yeah. Nice.
So
yeah. My active imagination, it's much more focused, I find, and I tend to keep them separate. So I don't have the active imagination leading into hypnagogic states. It's just I'm too awake for it for the most part. out of body experiences. So there's also Robert Monroe, talked about a ton in my journeying episode with Ren Collier. Very interesting. Out of body experiences, different. I will say different, but yes, they do overlap. And Jennifer Dumpert talks about in her book, there's a group of people that she works with who are onieronauts, who OBEs and hypnagogia is like their jam. I really hope that this group of people somehow produces a book or something, because out of body experiences, I don't know if you've had them, Sam. They're ridiculous. No. Really? Oh man.
No, I don't want to ever have any. No. It sounds terrifying. Have you?
Oh yes, quite a few. Yeah, they're really interesting. I've had one. The most intense one I had was while I was being hypnotized by my psychologist, and it was crazy because I could hear him like flapping his gums at me in a hypnotic state, but I was completely out of my body. I was flying over. I was flying over, walking. I was like fly walking over Calgary, Alberta. It was intense.
Wow.
Yeah, but
that's cool.
Yeah. Out of body experiences, though, different than hypnagogia, although they do overlap. And yes, there are some folks that are looking into it. So let's talk about a couple of tips for people who to get this experience for the first time. Again, Dolly and Edison method, very, very good. But there's things that you can do if you take an airplane or a bus, hypnagogic states while taking an airplane, probably the best. For my money, if you want to experience hypnagogia without having to drop a coin or something into a bucket, just try falling asleep on an airplane. I'm terrible at sleeping on airplanes, so I'm in my hypnagogic state. I see crazy shit while I'm flying. Also, there's the air pressure, so it's already messing with your brain. Lovely. I try to stay on my back if I'm napping and I want to have a hypnagogic experience. I'm terrible at sleeping on my back. If I stay on my back, I will usually have pretty incredible hypnagogic experiences. Vehicles, airplanes. Nap, that's mine. Do you have any tips? Do you think you can help people experience hypnagogia for the first time?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and as magically operant people, I mean, just going all the way back to the ancients, sleep was so fucking important for them to, like I said, receive any type of information, especially for healing. And if that's the case, then we should probably approach the bedroom. How do I say this? Like, create a space that kind of induces a relaxation and I don't know, like brings you to that state. That's the best way I can describe, but it's so personal. If I'm like, well, I do this and I put this here and I put up string lights and my string lights, they pulsate, and it's not going to work for the next person. No, but
it's true.
I with my research on hormones and stuff, I came across this really interesting thing here where if you are able to menstruate at the beginning of your menstrual cycle, because estrogen and progesterone are low, you will have insomnia more. But progesterone actually acts like a sedative. Okay. Which is interesting. And so that part of your cycle, I believe, is like the ovulation stage.
Got it.
But they were testing progesterone effects on men as well. And men seem to have more hypnagogic experiences and lucid dreaming experiences when they do like progesterone dosages. But I can't speak too much about that because that's where the research stops for me. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Hormones.
Very cool. Yeah. I just suggest for people, next time you're on a bus or something, not obviously like in the middle of a city, but if you're taking a long bus ride or flying in an airplane, just try to sleep. Even the trying of the sleep is like, will get you there because there's so much happening. There's people bustling. You're always going to be woken up by something. Unless you're taking a red eye or something like that. But yeah, I find I find I'm able to get into a hypnagogic state very easily on airplanes, just because there's way too much happening. Get
Yeah.
an aisle seat too, because there's always people walking past you, and it's just like, what are some of the ways? Like people ask, like, why do this? Like besides just because it's like crazy hallucinations and stuff like that. What do you think that hypnagogia can be used for healing, Sam?
I do think that it's very important for healing. It's also important if you want to explore a different creative part of yourself, artistic self. I directly take influences from my dreams and my hypnagogic and hypnopompic states. And as a performer, I try to pick the best like fantasy pieces and bring that to the stage. And so, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Somebody, I forget who it was. I think it was like, he was a biologist by the name of Luis Agassiz. He was trying to draw a picture of a fish, for a book. And he only had like a few of the fossils, only bits of the fossils. And so he was just trying over and over and over again. And then he decided to I'm just going to go to sleep. And then he couldn't fall asleep, but he was hanging in that hypnagogic state. And then he saw the animal that he was trying to draw. And then he woke up, he snapped out of it and he drew it. And then later they found a fossil and it was exactly the same as what he had drawn. Like it was
that's really interesting. Huh.
Yeah, so like it can be used for creativity, as Sam has said, for healing. If people, there's Jennifer's talked about how people use it for staying in like a very positive space while they're part of their healing process, as is hypnagogic as well. Some people have talked about how it brings them closer to their partner. They just feel this this upspring of like love that occurs, particularly if they're doing the hypnagogic state beside their partner. It's this kind of thing is great. And it's just a wonderful state to explore. Like we do it every night. Well, unless you sleep during the day, but it's
right.
it's something that we have access to. And should you put time into it, it's a tool to use in a ton of things. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about something that might be a little bit macabre for some people. And truthfully, I want to do a whole episode about this. As I was doing this show, I did some more research on it. But it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I think I have to do a full show on this. And they're called end-of-life experiences. Everybody knows about near-death experiences. Not a lot of people know about end-of-life experiences. And that is a lot of people, when they are on their way to dying or to passing away, they have these very crazy moments. A lot of them talk about being with their family and their families telling them to come over, their families telling them everything's okay. A lot of people see God. A lot of people see Jesus, or like at least the research that has been done in the West for the most part. Yes, Jennifer Dumpert has a chapter in her book about her aunt. Very touching, very touching. It depends on what you think a hypnagogic experience is. So I will do a show on end-of-life experiences at one point, because I don't think that it can only be hypnagogic experiences. There are some people that have recorded the things that people who are having end-of-life experiences, what they've experienced, and it's more interesting than just hypnagogia. It's not to say that it can't be a part of it, but it's just seemingly far more interesting. Sam, I have to ask you, what do you think what do you think dreaming is? What do you think dreams are? What model do you use?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, how do I answer this? Okay. I'm trying to find like the least depressing way to say this, because I've just not had like a really good childhood. And I think dreaming became a personal power of mine in a life where I never felt like I had power in any situation, any dynamic. And I do really feel like, and I know I'll get made fun of, but I do feel like we go to another realm when we sleep, and we kind of get like bits and pieces of information from our, whatever you call it, the ancestors, the gods, the spirit guides, or angels. And here's the thing, I'm never concerned if I wake up and I don't remember what, these entities said to me, because I know that the spiritual realm reflects, this realm. Mm-hmm. So I know if I like pick up a book and I'm reading something, I'm like, why does that sound so familiar? Where does this come from? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I had a dream about this. Right. I think I was led to pick up this book. I don't know. Dreaming for me is a catch-all. It's problem solving. It's peering into the future, into the past, your past lives. It's my favorite part about life, which is kind of silly to say.
No, not at all. No, I agree with that's wonderful, Sam. Yeah, I do think sleep is sacred. I'm there with you. I think it's a realm. It is a realm, and we've known it's been a realm through every swath of history. It's been the place where we go to get omens. It's another area, and these liminal states, that's like our little time to be able to maybe pull a little bit out, to be able to pull. And a pull enough that it's able to be deciphered in a way that dreams cannot be. But yeah,
that's certainly what it feels like stretching, being in that state and stretching those experiences and getting, for me, I get information. I don't know about anybody else. It could just be like funny images. It could be nothing. But for me, I make sense of the nonsense. I think that's one of my gifts, but whatever.
I love it. Yeah, I think that we owe it to this realm that we spend so much of our life to be able to try and embody aspects of it in this life, like in our life. I think that that's something that's very crucial. And I don't think a lot of the people that just, that your dreams and your brain is just like off gassing. I've never seen that. They're way too profound for me for that kind of stuff. And if you see the literal future of people dying, that's some kind of evidence. So, and it's a personal evidence, I'd say, but I do think you're on. I agree with you there. It's a different place. It's not just this reality. It's part of it. I think it might be bigger than what we consider this. Like, I think this waking reality is just a small part of this other place that's very beautiful, I think. Well, let's talk about some things for people to look into, I'd say. So I mentioned the book, Liminal Dreaming by Jennifer Dumpert, probably the best book. By far, grab it. There's exercises in the back. There's little places for you to make notes. Wonderful. She's a fantastic writer. We've only scratched the surface here as far as like things to look into, but Jennifer goes into it in great detail. It's awesome. There's also Hypnagogia, the unique state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep by Andreas Mavromatis. I have read this book. I didn't understand a lot of it. It's very good. This is kind of like the book that everybody went towards, that kind of like kicked the doors open and allowed for people like Jennifer, others to talk more about it. There's a book called The Secret History of Consciousness by Gary Lockman. He's got a chapter on hypnagogia in there. Well worth looking into. Please also go to Jennifer's website, because a lot of the exercises in the book are there. You can just do them for free. She also has her own guided meditations there on her website. So you can do a guided hypnagogia. So we're coming to the end here. Why is this important? So we just kind of touched on it briefly already, but I think that there's a reason I say that tackling dreams and hypnagogia and lucid dreams is important as a new magician. We have this thing available for us to use every night, and it is a state that we take part in as a witness with perceptions that go against everything that we've been told about how the world works. This is not fantasy. This is real. There is a reality to this. If we can see our future before it's even happened, the house of cards that we've built around us as far as fundamental materialism, it collapses pretty fast. The second you see somebody or something happen in your dream or in a hypnagogic state happen later, You can't say that we live in a
Right.
universe that's set up the way that a lot of people have told us it's set up, like that this dead matter universe, right? So these things are important, and it might not be as big and as grandiose as like the old initiation experience that a lot of people want from magic. They want that Golden Dawn initiation. They want that like big thing, but work on your dreams. Work on the small things. These things you can get good at them. You can get good at remembering your dreams. You can get good at lucid dreaming. You can get good at staying in a hypnagogic or a hypnopompic state. It just takes a little bit of work. It might be subtle, but it is there. And that is your initiation. And it's an initiation we take part in every day. We have to sleep. We have to do this. But you can interact with dead relatives. You can interact with angels. Everything that Sam was saying is possible with us. And because it isn't a dream does not mean it isn't real. It is. It is beyond real. And once you start taking part in this and bring it into your life changes for the better, I'd say. So it is beyond important to you. It is beyond important to me to take part in this thing that cultures from time immemorial have viewed as being utterly important. And it is time to start seeing it as being important. And Hypnagogia is just one of the wonderful ways. Interesting, as yet uncharted. This stuff is almost uncharted. Like this is the new territory. And it is wonderful. So Sam, thank you so much for joining. Do you have anything to add?
You know how they say, like, before you enter your life, you sign a contract in the spirit realm, and you know you know what's going to happen. I don't know. Like, sometimes I feel like these states that we like the hypnagogic state and hypnopompic state. It's a mouthful, by the way.
It is. It is.
What if it's just like aspects of your higher self being like, oh, hey, remember, like, this was going to happen tomorrow. Like, just make note of that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't have anything like cool and scientific to add.
No, science is rarely cool, but yeah, there's, and what I think that's interesting about dreams is that, particularly for you, if you're starting off in magic, whatever metaphysics you want to tie to dreams and dreamings, for it to be helpful for you, the sky is the limit. It really is. And that is a very important thing. And it's probably the first metaphysics you should probably work out. I don't think you need to work out how gods work, or if it's a Neoplatonic model, or whatever Sephiroths and stuff like that. Figure out what do you think the dreaming is? What do you think dreams are? How might they work? How can they be utilized? You don't even need an answer. You don't need an answer for yourself as to what dreams are. But that's one of the first incredible and potent steps that one has. So, and
it's so personal. It's so personal. And like the dream is wait, I have a quote. Can I read this quote? Hold
100%,
on.
yes.
So William Wordsworth was a poet. Yes. He once wrote that imagination is reason in her most exalted mood.
I like it.
And like, that's how I feel about, I mean, and dreaming, imagination, going hand in hand, maybe not exactly the same, but that's exactly how I feel when I'm dreaming. It's like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
I do. It's very important. But that's the show for everybody for Hypnagogia and Hypnopompia. And I hope really that this just piqued people's interest and to look into it further. Grab Jennifer's book. It is a wonderful book. Sam, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Tell us what's going on in your world. What do you have? What's happening?
Too much. I have a blog where I focus on writing about being, I don't know, what do you call it? Like was it Gaius who said, if you want to be the indie kid in the gift shop, you have to call yourself a sorcerer?
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hard agree. So I write about being like a sorcerer type person, but written from the perspective of somebody who has a chronic condition, and who has gone through trauma. So I have a blog called the Mad Sorceress Grimoires. So there's that. Then I have to sate my artistic self, I have a Patreon where I do like a variety show with my husband, and we kind of showcase, I love synthwave music. So,
Cool.
so we showcase like synthwave people in the community, and so that's
Wonderful.
fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. Where can people find your blog, Sam?
It is, what is it? Mad Sorc Grimoire.squarespace.com.
Wonderful.
And then the Patreon is Patreon/heavy retro, one word. Heavy retro, yeah.
Patreon.com/heavy retro. And that heavy retro is your variety show that you do. You dress up in wonderful costumes. My girlfriend loves this show. She loves synthwave as well. So it's like it's a really wonderful show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do you just uploaded an episode, did you not?
I did, yeah. I reviewed my friend Vandal Moon's recent album. So I'm a burlesque and a burlesque performer and a drag queen, and I kind of meshed the two together, and it's like this Elvira type of personality, or like Dolly Parton personality, and I'm just kind of reviewing albums, or I really want to get into like reviewing obscure movies, which is like my next thing, but whatever, we'll see what happens.
Wonderful. I will have links to absolutely everything that Sam gets up to, the blog, as well as the Patreon. They'll all be available at whatmagicisthis.com. Also available at whatmagicisthis.com, you can find links to my Twitter account, my Facebook account, as well as my Instagram account. I'm fairly active on Twitter, not as much these days, but that's just how she goes. It's kind of a terrible place sometimes. Anyways, sometimes it's fun. But yes, those are all available at whatmagicisthis.com. If you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, and then perhaps they'll tell a friend, and that's how this whole word of mouth thing gets going. Also, if you enjoy the program, please leave a review for me either on iTunes or Stitcher or any place that you can. I don't know if Spotify does reviews. I don't think they do. I think they tried it and then they just kind of went away. Anyways, iTunes, greatly appreciate it because, I think it's called Apple Podcasts now. Anyways, I keep saying iTunes. Nobody uses iTunes. There's no such thing as iTunes anymore, is there? Doesn't matter. But if you can leave a review for me on Apple Podcasts, that would be greatly appreciated. People do read those reviews, and it's wonderful. So let's say you think that I'm doing something important here for What Magic Is This, and you want to support the show in some way. Well, there are 3 ways of doing that. The first way is the best way, and that is Patreon. That is patreon.com/whatmagicisthis, and it's only $7 a month, and that gives you access to a whole bunch of exclusive material. There's full episodes, there's videos about things like setting up an ancestral altar, creating your own incense, that kind of stuff. I do episodes about certain gods and entities and saints and all of that kind of wonderful stuff. It's just a wonderful, wonderful program, and it's like a separate podcast. There's this regular podcast that I do, What Magic Is This? And then there's the Patreon, which is truthfully, that's my favorite stuff right there. Like it's just the most wonderful place. And I have so much fun doing all of my material on there, although I fall behind quite a bit just because it's busy. Things get so busy. But for the most part, I try to keep it updated, at least some kind of new thing every 2 weeks or so. And yes, I really, really enjoy it. It's my favorite stuff. It's all there. And it's only $7 a month. That's it. I have one tier, $7 a month, support the show. That's all I'm asking for. And it gives you access to a whole bunch of exclusive things, as well as access to a Discord server where you can ask me questions at any time of the day. Well, I sleep, but you'll get the message. Like I'll reply to you anyways. But there's also some old guests that have appeared on the show. They're in the Discord as well. It's just a wonderful place. It's such a friendly, wonderful environment, and people are there to learn and share, and it's just the best. But that's only available through Patreon. That is patreon.com/whatmagicisthis. $7 a month. That's my pitch. Say you want to support the show with some kind of cash, but you don't feel like joining a Patreon, then I have a PayPal Me. Go to whatmagicisthis.com. Any number of the PayPal Me buttons there. They're all over the place. Just click them. You can donate $5, $10, $20. Any amount helps. It all goes back into making sure that this show runs. It keeps the fires on and keeps the hamster wheel running. And yeah, that's basically the best way of doing that. Unfortunately, you don't get access to any of the exclusive content that I put out. But yeah, PayPal is there if you show desire. Another way of supporting the show is showing your support by grabbing some merchandise. Head to whatmagicisthis.com, go to the menu, click on merchandise. You'll find t-shirts, tote bags, notebooks, mugs, stickers, buttons, all sorts of things. They're all there, and they're really quite wonderful. I do all of the designs for the most part. Well, I had help with a couple of designs, but yeah, some of your favorite What Magic Is This designs, they'll be up there. You can grab anything you like. And truthfully, I don't make a ton of money off of that, but it's a wonderful way of showing your support. When you walk around, people will be like, what magic? This literally happened to me the other day. Somebody did ask me, what magic is this? And I said, it's a pretty cool podcast. I literally did the thing I said that I do, that you should do when I do these little outros. But yes, somebody literally was like, what magic is this? And I was like, yeah, it's a podcast. It's pretty good. Check it out. Anyways, but that's another way of showing the support. But yes, the best way of supporting what I do here is on the Patreon. That's where I want to see you. $7 a month. Again, that is all that I am asking. And it all goes to help keep this dream alive, because this is my job. And I really do love it. And it's the absolute best. And yes, it's been a week. It's been a month. Holy smokes. I mean, I know it's September now, but yeah, the last half of August was just a trial. Anyways, I'm doing good. Anyways, if anybody's wondering, yes, things are fine. But anyways, all of those can be available at whatmagicisthis.com. Sam, you've been so wonderful to what magic is this, and we all love you on the Discord and elsewhere, and you're such a luminous soul. It's really wonderful that we were able to get you on the show, and I've had so much fun. I actually had fun just talking to you back and forth on Twitter before the episode went underway, and because I think you were learning some things. You're like, whoa, I didn't know this is. I was like, I do this all the time. And it's like, yeah, that's wonderful. So that's the thing about this whole magic journey. If you're not learning and you're not enjoying yourself from learning, and if you're not learning from others, like I may shit on like, groups and stuff like that for magic, but I think just bouncing ideas back and forth between people is one of the most wonderful things. So I want to thank you again, Sam, for being such a wonderful member of the What Magic Is This community. It's wonderful.
Thank you for having me. It's just like a dream come true. You definitely changed my life, and so has the Discord. 100%.
Oh my gosh. It's wonderful. I hope that sometime in the future, if I was to ask you to come back on, we'll talk about some more stuff. Oh
my God. Yes, please.
Wonderful. That's great. So that's the show, everybody. Please find out that everything that Sam gets up to, I will have links for all of the links for them in the show notes to this episode. But all right, we're going to log off here. So I wish everybody pleasant dreams and happy napping. I don't know about you, but I'm probably going to have a nap after this. But it's night where you are, so it's like it's
getting too dark in here.
It's time for bed.
Yeah.
That's the show, everybody. Please come on back to What Magic Is This, where we will talk about more of this liminal, wonderful wake sleep stuff that we like to call magic and the occult. Until then, I want each and every one of you to stay healthy, to stay hopeful, and to stay luminous. We will talk at you soon. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.